Yo, Julius, this is your girl Raven Chapman, the Omen. Just want to give you a big shout out here from the UK. And Ring IQ, you're the man. Thanks so much for your support.
Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news. Ow!
Okay, we'll start with this. News broke earlier today by way of Kim Clavel's social media. Kim Clavel, newly crowned WBC light flyweight champion, who was pleased to announce that her next fight will take place on December 1st at the Place Bell in Laval. It will be a big unification fight against newly crowned WBA world champion of Mexico, Jessica Neri Plata. My preliminary thoughts. Kim Clavel really is a go-getter, and this is turning out to be a very big year for her, if she can in fact secure the W and seal the deal against yet another fighter, and another champion in many ways, who's more experienced as a professional than she is. Jessica Neri is not what I would describe as low-hanging fruit in this division. She is quite formidable. The truth is, at light flyweight, none of the champions can be described as low-hanging fruit. Not Jessica Neri Plata, not Evelyn Bermudez. This division's unified champion, the only unified champion at this weight. 3 champions at this weight, and none of them are a walk in the park. So Kim Clavel is deciding to cap off what is already a big year for her with a big unification match against yet another Mexican-born champion, though more experienced overall as a professional. Both Kim and Jessica won their alphabet titles in their last outings. Both Kim and Jessica fought formidable fighters, formidable champions for those titles. Kim won the WBC title from long-reigning champion Yesenia Gomez, and Jessica, she won her WBA title from one of the most formidable fighters the sport has ever seen, Argentina's own Jessica. Long-reigning WBA light flyweight champion of Argentina, Jessica Bopp. And if you're familiar with Jessica, you'll know that she's fast on her feet, athletic, with speed in those hands, the same way that Kim Clavel is fast and athletic with speed in those hands. Jessica sports a professional record of 28 wins, 2 losses with no draws, 3 knockouts having never been stopped. And those 3 knockouts she's got, don't let that fool you into thinking that Jessica can't punch. She can punch. Even if she's not a knockout puncher, there's power in those hands. She can wear you down. That's what Kim's got to deal with in December. Kim Clavel, who sports an unblemished record of 16 wins, no losses, and no draws, with 3 knockouts. Of the 2 champions, Kim Clavel and Jessica Neri Plata, I'd have to say that power would have to go to Jessica. Speed, mobility, and movement would have to go to Kim. Kim Clavel is the more streamlined and nuanced fighter with more layers to her game, though I think Jessica's the more durable and heavy-handed fighter, the more durable and heavy-handed puncher, and experience also would have to go to Jessica. The dynamic in this fight is not dissimilar from the dynamic we just saw in the Kim Clavel versus Yesenia Gomez fight. It is that kind of fight, but I do think Kim Clavel is going to have to work for it a bit more with Jessica Neri Plata than she did against Yesenia. She all but shut Yesenia out. She won virtually every round. I don't remember Yesenia Gomez winning a single round in that fight. Here with Jessica in December, I don't think it's going to be that simple. I don't think it's going to be quite that easy. Jessica has had good preparation for a fighter like Kim Clavel in the last fight she just fought in, the Jessica Bopp fight. Jessica Bopp is a characteristically mobile, fleet of foot, moving target. She also happens to have a lot of power in those hands too, a lot of speed. She's quite formidable, and I remember that fight being a close fight. I remember having some aversion to the judges' scorecards, the judges' decision. I don't think Jessica got the benefit of the doubt that perhaps she should have as a long-reigning champion. Better still, she got beat. Jessica Neri Plata beat her. The big part of how she was able to do that was she was nailing the reigning champion with shots in between the punches in the heat of the exchange, as well as going downstairs, going to the body. If you want to slow a fast fighter down, that's where you need to go. That's what you need to do, and that's what Kim Clavel needs to be mindful of, because Kim Clavel is also a fleet of foot moving target that stays mobile, in and out, putting punches together. She's got to be mindful of the body work. Jessica Neri Plata's body work, because that body work could slow her down and take her legs away. Whoever ends up the victor at the end of this match will be just one fight away from becoming this division's undisputed champion. Whoever wins this thing, as there is only one other champion to take on unbeaten Evelyn Bermudez of Argentina, who's no squirrely amateur and comes from a fighting family. The Fighting Bermudez sisters, and Evelyn Bermudez, she ain't no newly crowned champion. She's been a champion at this weight since December of 2018. Whoever wins this fight, whoever emerges the victor, they're gonna have to go see Evelyn if they want to become this division's undisputed champion. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. When it comes to Kim Clavel versus Jessica Neri Plata, it's that age-old dynamic of the boxer versus the puncher. Kim Clavel being the boxer and Jessica Neri Plata in many ways being the puncher. She's not as streamlined, not as nuanced as Kim Clavel, but I'd wager she will have a bit of size, a bit of power, and a bit of durability over Kim. I am expecting this to be a bit harder than the Gomez fight was. But Kim does have speed, combinations, movement, and mobility on her side, coupled with home field advantage. She's the home fighter. Jessica's the away fighter. Yvonne Michaud is doing a hell of a job with Kim Clavel, let me tell you. Very well-to-do Canadian-based promotional outfit with a very respectable stable of fighters. Kim Clavel is going to have to work for her money that night. This is all set to go down December 1st, a little over a month from now, and we'll talk more about the fight as the fight date approaches. Men's Cruiserweight news, an interesting development by way of Boxing Social, who states, WBO Cruiserweight champion Lawrence Okolie teases a unification fight could be on the horizon. Which champion do you think we'll see him in with? The last I heard about Lawrence, he's only got one fight left on his existing Matchroom contract. Did they smooth things over? And is he set to renew? Or did they cut him loose and he's set to make his debut under Boxer with a big Cruiserweight unification match? Last couple of days, last couple of weeks, Lawrence Okolie has not seemed at all content with his decorum. He's looked like a man who's looking to change it. Some cryptic talk by way of his own social media, which seemed like jabs he was taking at his promoter, Eddie Hearn. Some rumors and rumblings that he has left 258 Management, Anthony Joshua's management firm. And if all of that checks out, if all of that is true, it's looking a lot like he's set to leave Matchroom, but we really don't know. It's immaterial information until something is officially announced, and that hasn't happened yet. Lawrence is one of 3 champions in today's Cruiserweight division. There's Lunga Makabu holding the WBC title, Arsene Goulamarian holding the WBA, and newly crowned IBF champion Jay Opataya of Australia, who, when last we checked, he might be decommissioned for the rest of the year, having his jaw broken in 2 places by the then champion Mayris Briedis, who's supposed to be fighting Justice Haney very soon, and that's another story. The promotional angle of all of this is pretty compelling. It's compelling because if Lawrence Okolie only has 1 fight left under his existing Matchroom contract, why would Matchroom go as far as securing him a fight with another champion at this weight? Could it be that they've smoothed things over and they're deciding to get him this fight so that he can stay with them? Or because it really doesn't make sense that they'd secure him a champion as the last fight under his existing contract. It doesn't make sense because you'd have to pay a champion, another champion at this weight, more than you'd have to pay your run-of-the-mill challenger. So why would you pay extra to get a guy a fight when you know the guy's about to leave anyway? Or is it that he's not about to leave? Is he going to stay with Matchroom, or did Matchroom cut him loose, and what we're hearing about is Lawrence's Boxer debut? Having only 1 fight left on his existing contract, did the people at Matchroom make the decision to release him so he could go over to Sky Sports and Boxer and debut over there, presumably against a champion, which is what we're hearing more or less, that his next fight will be a unification match. Is that what this is? It's compelling. It's interesting. You could give Lawrence Okolie decent odds against any of the other champions, any of the other titleists at this weight. Some more than others. The sparsely active Arsene Goulamarian, who, last time I checked, hasn't had a fight since 2019. I think he was supposed to fight his mandatory challenger, and something happened to where the fight got called off. A lot of news in reference to Arsene Goulamarian flies under the radar. The guy's got virtually no profile. There is Lunga Makabu, who is very recently in action against Tabiso Muchunu in their rematch, a rematch where he didn't look impressive. He didn't look great. And he's still with Don King. Who the hell wants to deal with Don King? Lawrence would have to, regardless of who his promoter is, in order to get Lunga Makabu in the ring. And Don King, he could make things difficult because Lunga's the only champion of any kind he has in his entire stable. I don't get the sense that he would part with him so easily, but it's boxing, and he's very old. so you never really know until you know. That leaves only newly crowned IBF champion, unbeaten J.O. Pataya, this division's IBF Ring Magazine and lineal champion.
Right.
Last I heard, that guy's decommissioned for the rest of the year, recuperating from having his jaw broken in 2 places. Is he medically cleared to fight? Will his first fight back be a hard fight, a unification match against an unbeaten champion like himself? That'd be pretty fucking ballsy. And like I said, you could give Lawrence good odds against any one of these guys because Lawrence is a bit of a spoiler. He's a tall, rangy guy with very long extremities, and he could easily move up to heavyweight and fit right in.
But he is a bit of a spoiler.
He does have a tendency of making his fights somewhat lackluster, initiating all those clinches. A big guy like this, big reach, big power. This guy can punch.
But up until he actually gets off a punch and lands one, his fights can be pretty hard to fucking watch.
There's only so much promotion that can compensate for an un-fan-friendly fighting style. That's the way it's been with Lawrence in a good number of his fights.
But he is hinting at a unification match, and perhaps the man opposite the ring, depending on who it is.
Perhaps he can spice things up, depending on who it is, and force Lawrence into a hard night. Force Lawrence into a hard fight.
It's all speculation until something gets officially announced.
And just in keeping with the theme of speculation coming out of today's Cruiserweight division, the rumor mill is spinning, and what it's spinning is that unbeaten up-and-comer from the UK, Richard Riakporhe, is set to take on former WBO Cruiserweight champion of Poland, Glovacki.
Richard Riakporhe boxes over there on Boxer, Sky Sports.
Sporting a professional record of 15 wins, no losses, and no draws, 11 knockouts. He's at that stage in his career to where he's fighting a former champion, or he could be if this rumor checks out. Richard Riakporhe, an explosive puncher, the same way that Lawrence Okolie is an explosive puncher, though it's the methodology that's different. I have to admit, Richard Riakporhe,
He's more fun to watch than Lawrence's. Lawrence's fights can be rather cringeworthy.
they can. Richard's a big guy for this weight, like Lawrence is a big guy for this weight, standing in at about 6'6".
Not the biggest wingspan, though. 77 inches?
He ain't got the longest arms for a cruiserweight, but there is virtue in that. Not having those long extremities, it's actually easier to put punches together. Sequences and salvos of punches, combinations and short punches, short, sharp shots.
Those guys with shorter arms, they're better on the inside, mid-range to inside.
Richard's coming off that second-round knockout of Fabio Turchi. Folded that guy up like a beach chair off a very short body shot that Fabio didn't see coming. If he ends up taking on Glovacki,
Very experienced guy, former champion.
sporting a professional record of 32 wins, 3 losses with no draws, 20 knockouts, having been stopped 2 times. Those 2 guys that stopped him, one was Lawrence Okolie in his last fight, and before that, it was former champion Maris Briedis. He also dropped a decision to Alexander Usyk.
That was a battle of the southpaws, as Usyk is a southpaw. You all know that. And so is Glovacki.
Who has since rebounded after being stopped in 6 rounds by WBO champion Lawrence Okolie. He was last in action in April of this year against Francisco Ruiz, who Christoph stopped in 4 rounds.
I like Richard's chances against this guy because Richard's explosive. He's got power.
He can hurt you up top. He can hurt you downstairs. He's at a point in his career where he's finally taking on somebody who's world level, world class to some degree, a former champion who's been around the block and fought a lot of fighters, a guy who can test him.
But a guy that he can knock out in a situation that he can manage. I like this fight if the rumor checks out.
And finally, men's lightweight news. Former champion, now retired 4-division champion Mikey Garcia doesn't see how Vasyl Lomachenko pulls off a win against Haney.
The one that got away. The fight between Mikey Garcia and Vasyl Lomachenko.
Too bad it never happened. I guess Mikey figured he'd make more money losing in one-sided fashion to Errol Spence Jr. than taking a chance with Vasyl Lomachenko. Better still, Mikey said, "I'm picking Haney in that one. I think Haney is naturally bigger, and he's so talented. I'm picking Haney. I think Loma, he's got great skills, but naturally, he is the smaller fighter."
It's a great fight. I hope we get it, but I'm not sure that we will, though if we do...
I don't really think it's as cut and dry as Mikey Garcia is making it out to be. He's talking about Devin's size being a big advantage in this fight. But you know what? Masayoshi Nakatani had a lot of size on Vasyl Lomachenko. So did Richard Comey, and he's a hard-punching guy.
Well, those guys did have size on Vasyl Lomachenko, but they're not as talented talented as Devin Haney. He's got a higher ceiling than they do.
Though at the same time, they've got power, and he doesn't. Mikey Garcia added, you saw what happened when he fought Teofimo. It was the size. It was just the size. So I would have to go with Haney. And I have to disagree. No, it wasn't just the size of Teofimo Lopez that in many ways disarmed Vasyl Lomachenko for a good portion of their fight. It wasn't just the size. It was actually the speed and power more than just the size itself. It was being wary of the counters from a hard-punching guy that can hurt you and can take you out.
It wasn't just the size. If it all boiled down to size, Linares would have beat him. Nakatani would have beat him. Komei would have beat him.
Because they all had size on Vasyl Lomachenko. They are all naturally bigger fighters than he is. But size alone did not secure them the victory. And it wasn't size alone that secured Teofimo the victory. It was speed and power. And while Devin Haney does have speed and he does have size, he doesn't have power.
I mean, he's a big kid, he's young, he's athletic, he's fast.
But he ain't got power. I'd have to say that Devin Haney's best weapon, his money punch, would have to be the jab.
Because he ain't got a hard right hand or a devastating left hook, a jaw-splitting uppercut. He doesn't have those weapons, but he does have a good jab.
As we all know, the jab is the most important punch in boxing. A good jab, a good judicious jab, can stop a lot of things from happening before they ever happen. The thing is that Devin Haney is an orthodox fighter, whereas Vasyl Lomachenko is a southpaw. And good jab that Devin might have, Vasyl Lomachenko has the feet to get around it, or at least he has in the past. We'll see what he's got left in the fall when he returns against that Juan Ortiz kid.
And if he looks with Ortiz the same way he looked with Richard Komei, the same way he looked with Masayoshi Nakatani,
a jab, a simple orthodox jab out of the orthodox stance may not be enough to keep him out, as Vasyl Lomachenko characteristically cuts angles from out of the southpaw stance that allow him to get around that jab, just stay on the outside of it, and hit a guy with shots he don't see. He can slip the jab and fire the straight left hand down the pipe.
Or get off some body shots, because Vasyl Lomachenko is more of a body puncher than Devin is.
He is better mid-range to inside than Devin, more lethal. Devin's more of an outside fighter. His best punches are his straight punches while he's managing the distance.
So if Vasyl Lomachenko here today is the same Vasyl Lomachenko of old, he may be able to close it.
Close the distance and close the gap and beat Devin Haney from the inside out. That is, unless Devin Haney has another layer, another gear he hasn't shown us yet because he hasn't had to bring it out. It's a very intriguing fight.
And we know that Bob Arum wants to make it. He wants the winner of Haney versus Kambosos 2 to defend those titles against Vasyl Lomachenko.
But is Devin up for it? Is Bill Haney, Devin's father?
You can do the rounds and visit as many podcasts as you want and say what you want, but behind closed doors, you've got to know that this is a more dangerous fight than a George Kambosos fight or a Jojo Diaz fight.
Or a Chinny Gamboa or a Chinny Linares. You couldn't stop or drop those two boys. You're going to stop Loma.
I'd like to believe that we're going to get this fight, but I'm really not sure that we will. We'll see.